Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's Fireside Creators. I am Reverend Dr. Sherry Palace. This week's show is on the perspectives of preachers' kids. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe. If you are on Facebook, register with StreamYard so we can see your name when you comment or ask a question. Otherwise, you're going to be Facebook anonymous. Please keep all of the comments and questions related to the show topic. And remember, this is a safe space. I want to give a shout out to the sponsors of the show. And I keep forgetting to update this. I apologize. Tim, thank you. Amanda, Kirsten, Michelle, and Ruth. You guys enable the show to keep going on, and I thoroughly appreciate it. But most importantly, thank you for watching. If you like the show, please consider supporting it. I've started a Patreon under Fireside Creators, a cafe press under my name, Sherry Palace, where there's all kinds of stuff. And I honestly believe that everyone should have a coffee mug that says "Don't be a dick" on it. So go and get yourself one of those. I've got 80 different designs up there, and I would really appreciate your support. You can also become a member on Patreon and join us in the VIP after the show, where you get to talk one-on-one with the panel. So thank you in advance for supporting my work. Okay, let's meet our panel. We have a fantastic one, of course. Hello, David. How are you? Where am I doing? Where's my screen? Oh, here we go. Our first guest is Heather. She is a middle-aged nerd who, in her spare time, enjoys writing poetry, being a book blogger, and exploring her new home in the Midwest. She was raised as a preacher's kid and is still processing those experiences. Welcome, Heather. Well, where'd you go? How come I don't see you? Heather? I don't know why she's so. Oh, there she is. Oh, we think we just lost her. We'll go back to the intros. Next, we have Sarah. And Sarah is a pastor's kid, former pastor, wife, mom, and Grammy. She leads a Christ-centered deconstruction group on Facebook and really has a heart to see those whom the institutional church destroyed, forgot, ignored, and abandoned finally healed and whole. Welcome, Sarah. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you.
Nice to see you, ladies. Heather, good to see you back on.
Is your
hopefully everyone has had a better day than I am. I can see in the screen, which I actually tried to hide, but unsuccessfully at that. I'm on crutches, everybody. I spent the day in the emergency room. It's not broken, but I am on crutches for the next 4 weeks.
How did you do that?
The crutches are going to stay over here and try and keep them out of the camera light. So I want to hear, of course, there's the songs, The Son of the Preacher Man. There are misnomers about how the PKs are the most rowdy of the bunch and, the most rebellious. And then there's also, both of you are shaking your heads. And then, there's others that toe the line and go through all of these different types of things. So I really wanted to just chat and figure out your stories and where you guys stand now and how things are. Heather, do you want to start?
Oh, but I get to go first.
Yeah.
Let's see. Well, I'm not just a PK, but also like a church planting kid, if you will. So
okay.
My dad was a church planter. So we, of course, you rent out a facility and you set up, and then afterwards you tear down. So you never really feel like you have like a building, like you can go to any time per se. So that was that was different.
So did you move around a lot?
Not really. Really only did one major move in high school. Other than that, pretty much.
So it was all local church planting.
Mm-hmm.
And are you close with your family now?
It has rooms for improvement.
Doesn't all parent-child relationship, though.
Yep, it does.
Yeah.
Michelle says Porta Church. That's funny.
We used to do that too, so I
Yeah. So you said that you're still processing those experiences. What experiences do you need to process? How is that going?
I don't know. I think, being born, bred in the church, you sort of like, I mean, we all have come to faith on our own, but in a way it's sort of like, expected, sort of expected, if you will. So I think it's, once you've grown up, moved out or what have you, it's learning, to have your own faith and take ownership, cutting the spiritual purse strings, if you will. So yeah.
makes sense. Yep.
What about you, Sarah?
Well, I have a little bit of a different experience. My parents weren't Christians when I was first born. That's something that happened when I turned 3. And there's some very cool stuff that went into the story, but my dad actually heard the audible voice of God.
Oh, wow.
Tell him move from England to Canada to pack us all up. And so at 6, we all moved to Canada from England. And during the first year we were here, my dad really felt that God wanted him to start a church. So by the time I was 7, my dad and my mom planted a church in our living room, basically, to start with. And this was 41 years ago. So the church is now 41 years old. And my brother is now pastoring it.
Oh, wow.
But,
it's moved out of your parents' living room, though.
Yes. We built a church, like a church building about 27 years ago now. So yeah, we didn't, but we had to do what Heather did. We did the whole, you go into the school, you set it all up, you get all down.
Wow.
I don't know how Heather feels, but for me, I feel like my childhood ended when I turned 7 and my dad and mom started the church in our living room.
Why is that?
Because I felt like I was responsible for the church too. I felt like I had to be a role model for the other children. I mean, and some of that is what my mom put into me, to be honest, is that, you have to be an example, and your example will raise those kids up, and then those children will mentor the others. And so basically, at the time we had a bunch of rebellious youth in our church, and my mom was adamant that was not the way I was going. It was kind of like, okay, I love my mom dearly, but she's a force to be reckoned with, and you just don't say no to my mom. And it just didn't seem to matter, some of the things, like if I got up to something, first of all, it was a small community that I was living in. It was about 1,200 people at the time. And basically, I couldn't do anything wrong. The first time I kissed a boy outside the school, my mom knew before I got home. Someone in the church had seen me, and they found her.
Wow.
Oh, no.
Right? So, I mean, there was just all these, I felt constantly watched, and there was a level of expectation on me that I didn't feel there ever was on any of the other kids. And it wasn't necessarily from my parents. It was from the other people in the church. And one of the things I'll use an example of is when I was about 9 or 10, my dad was praying over people that they were putting into leadership positions, like as deacons or elders or whatever. And I was sitting at the back with some of the more rebellious teens, and my eyes weren't closed while they were praying. And this lady took pictures. Well, he went around and showed everybody in the church how the pastor's daughter did not have her eyes closed.
Oh my God.
So, so for me, it's like when I'm dealing with the deconstruction group, is I understand from being like both sides of ministry of to what it's like for, you know what I mean? Like in the sense that there is a pressure and expectation on pastors that isn't normal either, as well as, you know, people feeling abused by their leadership. There's like this two-way thing that goes on. So yeah, that's just, I mean, that's a little bit of
that must have been a lot of pressure for you. I mean, while you were talking, I was thinking of my first church, which was an Assemblies of God church. There was only about 300 people.
Yeah.
And the preacher's kids there were always, from what I saw as a child, as a peer to them, they always seemed untouchable, the perfect children. In fact, when, you know, the Christmas or the Easter presentations came around, we all just assumed they were a shoo-in, you know, they're going to get the main parts, all of those things. It wasn't true. Right. It wasn't true because I actually ended up getting a lot of those parts. But I remember thinking, oh, I'm not going to get it because she's the preacher's kid. And it was always, you know, she was the prettiest and, you know, but there was no hatred or jealousy. It was kind of like be like these kids. And now hearing you say that, I never even understood all the pressure that was involved in that.
Yeah.
But by the way, if my mom told me not to be rebellious, and I rebelled.
I got the whole, I don't believe children have to go into rebellion, and we're going to bring you through this. No. Yeah.
Yeah, she said don't rebel, and I went, okay, that means I'm going to rebel.
I did the rebelling inside.
Yeah.
In the sense that I was, my mom always called it, you're standing up, but I can see you're sitting down on the inside.
Oh, wow, I like that. Yeah. Heather, what are your horror stories like that?
Oh, rebelling? Oh, I was the goody two-shoes until my parents would giggle if they heard me confess this. Before senior year of high school, we had moved to a new state, and I had left behind my then high school boyfriend. And I decided, I was 18, mind you, I decided I'm going to move back home to graduate with my class. So I planned it out with my friend to live with her family, bought a one-way ticket, and my parents found out 2 weeks before, and they're like, we're talking right now. And it was like 10 at night, and I'm just like, my dad's like, nope, you can go for 2 weeks to visit, and you're coming home. I'm like, ah. So that was short-lived. Wow. But that was my main rebellion in high school. That was it.
So how
goody two-shoes.
How was your life different than someone who's not a pastor's child? And I mean, going through those things and being on needing to be that example. I mean, do you still carry that with you today?
To some degree, I think, yeah, there's like, for instance, like I don't generally wear makeup, right? But for me, like when I went into church or whatever, that was like the face you put on, and that was so like, yeah, there's a certain amount of like, you got to be put together, and you know, like people look up to you and they're reading your stuff, so you have to make sure that you're living what you're preaching, basically.
I feel that every day.
Exactly.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah. I mean,
yeah. So, but the thing is, like, I don't know what your story is like, Heather, but I mean, you know mine a little bit, Sherry. Like mine ended up in a purity culture swing with getting married at 18 to our associate pastor. And so basically I was a pastor and a pastor's wife at 18 years old. And so there was no room for rebellion. I think that's part of the reason, actually, I'm sick, because one of the only ways to get out of, being at church twice on a Sunday, Monday, Wednesday night, and maybe Fridays for youth, if we were helping out, the only way to get out of it was by saying, I'm sick.
That is interesting. Even when you're on vacation.
Yes.
You still visited,
you could take you to church.
church. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep. Where we go, we have a common memory there. We got dragged to church on vacation.
Yeah, I've never heard of that, but okay.
Oh yeah, you got to go find the best church to be at while you're there for the first. You go the first Sunday, and if you like it, you go the next Sunday. But if you don't, you check out another church while you're there
on vacation.
Yeah. Yep.
So I know, again, this is just from personal experiences and stories I've heard over the years, but I have heard that a lot of the PKs deal with hypocrisy and seeing a side of their parents that isn't presented to the world and having to reconcile that with the public face and presenting this image and knowing at home they're a completely different person and not walking that walk. Did either of you have that experience?
My parents walked their walk.
That's awesome.
Okay, so
that's awesome.
Okay, so but I gotta say that we also raised our children, and they were pastors' kids, and I think our kids definitely, if you were to talk to my daughter and my son, they would both say that there was a face that they saw at home, especially because I was so sick. And so I was like in bed. But on Sunday, mom led worship and she was put together. And, the family seemed like we were all tickety-boo, but we weren't. We were falling apart behind the scenes. So it didn't happen to me while I was being raised by a pastor, but it did happen while I was the pastor raising pastors' kids. Right?
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah. My son teased me about having a sales voice, and there was just a Kim Kardashian video that came out. And I'm not a Kardashian fan by any sense of the means. Let me just say that. But her kids were giving her grief for putting on her Instagram voice. And they were like, ooh, I'm selling this. And and Kim Kardashian's like, I don't do that. And is that a female trait? Maybe that's, I was in the emergency room and I'm here for this show tonight. So it might be a female thing where, you know what, you got to wrap it up. You got to take it and go. I don't know that's so much hypocrisy as it would be fake it till you make it type thing. What do you think, Heather?
I think growing up in the church, and I don't know if you can relate to this, Sarah, feeling like you said, like you have a mask, if you will, that you wear going to church, and then you get home like, okay.
Yes.
And, always, being asked like, oh, how are you today? And it's always, oh, I'm fine, or, oh, I'm doing great. And you're thinking like, so feeling comfortable to be honest with other, with congregants, other people in the church, that, I would say doesn't always happen. It depends on the congregation and the comfort level, but that pressure of always looking, like you're okay, that everything's great when it's
I know for like we would have like, this was when I was pastoring than when I was a pastor's kid, but like our church was praying for me, obviously, and my health. And one of the things I got asked every week by a very sweet lady who meant well was, are you healed yet?
Oh.
And it was like, there was this pressure to try and manufacture something I couldn't.
Yeah.
And my other comment to what you're saying, Heather, is I found that whenever I tried to be real and answered the question of how are you in a real way, they didn't want to hear anyway.
Oh, no. How are you as a placate?
Exactly. Like if I started saying something, it was like they'd glaze over and start looking around the room, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't really want to know. I was just saying hi.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, when he lost his father, went through that. He was like, I'm sick of saying I'm okay. No, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
But to have the leadership pressure on top of that, knowing that, your parents' business is involved and, those types of things, if you don't toe that line, has got to be so much pressure for a child. Like I said, I had no idea.
I don't know for you, Heather, but one of the things I found really hard is I didn't have any control over the narrative of my own life. there was a story that was told about me, and
okay, keep going. Sorry.
Right, like in the sense of my life. Actually, it usually came from my mom. I mean, her story about my marriage and coming together is much more fairy tale like, and I didn't feel like I could tell people the truth of how I felt inside going along. I felt like I had to live to whatever this narrative was. Does that make sense?
Like, so you felt like you couldn't like own your own story. It was like,
Yes.
here, let me tell your story through my words, and you're thinking like, but I'm the one that lived it. Like, do I get to say?
Yes.
But no, I can relate a bit. Not to go into this, but I was a preemie, and so I countless times almost didn't make it, and so what was it? So like growing up, whenever we'd have people over for dinner, whenever we were introducing, it was always, and here's our miracle, baby. And it was just sort of like, I heard the story over and over, and it was just sort of like, I'm more than that, but okay. And yeah, I mean, I've definitely been better about, coming to terms, with my own story and not, sort of appreciating it and moving on. But growing up, it did get old after a while. I was like, okay, there's more to us than that, but okay. I mean, but yeah, so sort of having your story told on your behalf.
And for you, it sounds like.
Exactly, and for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think parents are very guilty of that in a lot of ways. We have our ideals of who or what we want our children to be. But then you add the God factor, and I'm a spokesman for God on top of it.
Oh, yeah. I used to tell my mom, would you take
Yeah.
your pastor's hat off right now? I need my mother. Or, I'd say that to my dad, please take your pastor's hat off. I just want my dad, because...
Sarah, quick question. So was both your parents pastors or just your dad?
Well, the way it works in the circles I'm in is we work as together.
A team. Okay.
As a team. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know, like, when you say like take your pastor, hat off or what have you, would your dad go into like preacher lecture mode? Like if you got in trouble?
Maybe kind of. It was more that sometimes you just want someone to give you a hug and say they're there, not try and counsel you out of the situation and
try to fix you.
And maybe give you a kick in the pants in the process type thing. And that's what I felt was missing, is there wasn't a lot of coddling, let's put it that way. There was a lot of expectation of, I don't know, like I know I was a very mature child, so I'm not saying like, it's definitely, there was me involved too, right? So in the process, but I'm just having a look at my notes here. One of the things that really affected my adult life is one of the things I was taught to do is to apologize, to disarm, even if I wasn't wrong in the situation.
Wow.
Right? To disarm the situation, I would apologize and take blame. And that followed me through. I mean, I still do it.
Wow.
So, you know what I mean? Like that was something that was ingrained in me because, you're dealing with grown-ups, so they can't possibly be wrong. And so that was...
Respect your elders no matter what.
Yes.
Don't question.
Well, and I think as far as, especially with the evangelical church, there isn't much grace and mercy. A lot of it is, the swift kick in the butt and, get up there and militant. So to request that out of something from an institution, even if it is your parents, I'm sure that must have been foreign. It's just not something that was taught, at least in my evangelicalism growing up. I mean, we had a show on grace a couple weeks ago because I hadn't heard of it. I've been discovering grace for the last 10 years because it definitely wasn't in my church.
Yeah.
So to not have that grace as a parent on top of it. So how much have we spent on therapy, ladies?
Well, luckily my church paid for it.
That's awesome.
Because we were on staff. So I mean, I don't know how much they spent on therapy, but I went to see a therapist for 2 years solid. So probably quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. At $180 an hour at the time.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow.
Well, we'll just consider that your tithes.
You know what? I really appreciated it. They were very good. They were very good.
That's awesome that they afforded you that opportunity.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot to unpack. You know, and I was very angry inside, and I couldn't figure out why I was so angry. And when I started seeing the therapist, I mean, obviously it was more than just being a pastor's kid, but she basically said to me, she's like, it's okay that you're angry. It's okay. Like the things you're angry about are normal to be angry about. The only thing she didn't teach me what to do with is what to do with that anger and how to be. And that took a while to figure out how to release that. So, yeah.
I have a bat. And when I get really physically angry and I need to let it out, like Eckhart Tolle says, you got to let it out. I go beat a tree.
Wow.
And it really, really helps. I mean, by the end of it, I am exhausted. A tree that can take it.
Yes,
I mean, say that. I would never, do anything to damage another, out of my anger. But yeah, I mean, it's, in my corporate world, when I would have a bad day, I would, instead of screaming at everyone I loved and near to me, I would just go take a bat. And Michelle says, "Oh, poor tree." It was a strong tree, Michelle, and 3 times the size as I am. It took it, and it was there for me. So yeah, I mean, getting out that under aggravation so it doesn't turn you sick. I mean, women are famous or notorious for making ourselves sick over stress and making our stomachs bad. And they have now found a direct link from the head to the gut.
Yeah.
So, I wonder why my stomach hurts so much. Well, because we're stressed out. We have issues that we deal with, and we are told that we have to put on a smiling face and make it okay.
Yeah.
Heather, what do you think?
No, that it's very true. Yes. And learning how to de-stress.
So have you come out to your parents?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And how did they accept that?
There was mixed emotions involved, but I mean, it ended with "We love you. We're here for you."
Nice.
So yeah, that was.
How long ago did you do that?
6 years ago.
Okay.
Wow.
6 more years now.
Has their reaction to it changed over time?
I don't know. They don't really talk about it. They don't really talk about it, so.
It just doesn't come up. Oh, there you go.
There we go.
Tim wanted to see this. Here's my bat. I used my son's and the wooden one, and it broke. And I don't have any current trees that could take it where I live now, but it is good advice. Let me just say that it is really good advice.
I know that when my daughter had some counseling, and they had said to her things like, screaming underwater or into a pillow, like they gave you a whole list. I'm like, I wish I'd have had something like that at the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like just something that you could use. So, yeah.
So glad your parents loved you and did the best that they could.
Yes, they did. I think for both of us, by the sounds of it, they did.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't necessarily think that's everybody's story. I think you got lucky today. I was thinking there would at least be one rebellious one of us. I didn't do it until I was 38. So.
I'm not a preacher's kid, but I have enough rebellion for us all. I'll go ahead and cover that. In fact, on Twitter, one of my followers actually named me Rebel Rev. So
Aww.
I turned my Twitter name over to Rebel Rev because he was always calling me,
awesome.
Rebel Rev and all of that, and with my bat. So what would you do different, or if you could, say to another preacher's kid that is struggling and going through all of the things that you guys have already processed, what would you say? What would you do? How would you coach them? Would you say run? Don't do it. Leave now.
That's
Therapy
well,
101 now.
my biggest suggestion, in all honesty, having pastored myself and having watched my parents, is that in all honesty, people are not ready to be senior pastors until their kids are grown. And that is because they haven't gone through the stages to even have the wisdom to help people the way they need to be helped while they're trying to struggle through and figure out how to raise the kids themselves. So my first thing of advice would be, let's make senior pastors older, so that the stress isn't on younger families. Not that they shouldn't be in ministry, just that they shouldn't have the pressure of the senior job, because that's what basically crushed my first relationship. Is it was shaky enough, but once the weight of ministry went on top of it, as well as trying to raise teenagers, so that would be one of the things. And then the other would be what we tried to do, and that is that at least mom should be able to be at home and not at all the meetings, and at home with her kids. And you know what I mean? Like that the church isn't 24/7 and the kids feel like they have to be hidden away somewhere. Because I know, like for me, like with my parents, we didn't have a church building like you didn't. And so they would counsel in the evening in our home. And so that means we had to be in our room, right? Like 7 o'clock onwards at night, my brother and I, until I was in my teens, we had to be in our room.
Wow.
Because there was counseling nearly every night of the week, or a meeting, or.
Well, and that's interesting, because I would imagine that a lot of people sought the counseling for feeling isolated or alone, and yet you guys had to be isolated and alone so those people could be helped.
Well, when I decided to homeschool my kids, one of the congregants said to me, "If you homeschool your children, who will look after us?"
That was ballsy of them.
And I would think to myself, I'm like, so selfish, so incredibly selfish.
So selfish.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm kind of dumbfounded, because they're your kids.
I'm dumbfounded.
Yep.
And a lot of pastors, they do homeschool. So how is that like a new?
Well, it was new to our particular circle. My mom was a very, very hands-on pastor's wife, and she did most of the counseling. My dad's more the preacher teacher. And but for me, that was not my calling. I was our church's worship pastor, and I'm really good at teaching, but I'm not. I didn't want to spend all my time holding people's hand. That wasn't who I was. And so there was an expectation on me that I would be the same as her. And that made it really hard too. People said that expectation wasn't there, but boy, did they react when I didn't do things the same way as her. So.
Yeah, and the whole family dynamic has to be there when you are in that type of service, because if not, then there's suspicion and all of those things, which is why I assert that Jesus was either married or gay, because he had to have been in a relationship. No, seriously. If you're not coupled with someone, especially back then, you're a pariah. You have to be someone has to love you enough to do this, and all of those things, even if it's not real.
Yes.
You have to have that family dynamic, and even when people are saying, well, that doesn't matter, we matter more. That's like, wow.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's why I said, like, I've been on both sides of the equation now, right? Like, I felt the rejection of being part of a congregation when you're being rejected, and I felt what it's like to be on the pastoral side of it too, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
So what are you doing now? Are you still in it? Do you want to be in it? Do you want to run away? I know you do the deconstruction book on Facebook because of, helping people like, who watch this show. You're just using that experiences to help people for here on out.
That's pretty much like, I feel like I want to put a life raft out for people, that I don't think people need to lose Jesus at all. It's so much of the rest of what we've believed and held on to is just, it's being proven to be not true. So we have to, as, for me, to be a good steward of what God wants me to be, we have to admit that it's not true.
Yeah.
And then we have to figure out what is true. Oh, thank you, David. So yeah, like I want to help people. I don't want to see people lose Jesus. I don't want to see them lose the best part, but I don't want them to have to go through all the crap I went through and to strive. There's so much striving that goes on, and I don't think we need to do that. There's just rest.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we're just be.
Hang out on the side of a hill with 500 of your closest friends and eat,
Yes.
and fish and wine.
And for me, see, this is my thing. Like, couple people together.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. You put me in a crowd and I hate it.
Yep.
So,
the real Jesus rocks.
Yes, he does.
I have a feeling that might be Mike Zanker. I'm not sure, but he's been coming on and heckling me lately. So I'm still trying to get him back for that on his own show. Oh, David says, don't forget the bread. Fish, bread, and wine. Yes.
Yeah, fish and nuts.
Yeah. So Heather, what are you doing?
What am I doing? Well, I don't know. I've debated about finding a local church of where I'm at, but then I was like, and then with Rona, I'm like, I might settle for like finding something like I can watch virtually, and then gradually maybe like go in person at some point. And
I don't even feel a need for that, like interact. Like, I don't. For a long time, I felt like I missed that. I don't know if you do, but
like, you mean the community aspect?
Yes, but I'm not feeling that way anymore. It's just, I don't know. It feels like it's too much trouble sometimes.
Yeah.
How long?
Well, and I think social media fills a lot of that too.
11. Okay. Oh, I think.
I think I have found
my affair kind of blew everything up. How do I put this? We left the ministry before that ever happened. So that didn't happen to the church. That just happened to us. But unfortunately, of course, when you're the pastor's kid and your dad's still pastoring, there was definitely a response from the people that wasn't.
Oh, I'm sure. Judgment all the way around, I'm sure.
It was really rough. Really rough. Yeah. So.
Well, and like that comment that came through when someone was taking a picture of you with your eyes open, they had their eyes open to see you.
I did say that to my mom and dad afterwards. They're like, yeah, but she had her eyes open.
Yeah, how'd she know? Come on.
Yeah.
So what are the positive things that you guys take away from being a preacher's kid?
Well, I did write down some of those. One thing, my dad could be around whenever we needed him.
Wow. Okay, wait a minute. So that's interesting. So you felt that he wasn't always there for you, but then you're saying that that's a positive that he was.
In the evenings, no. Okay, evenings were gone. But something happened to one of us, they could always run home from the church. It wasn't a big deal. Like if one of us were injured or sick, he could take time off. Mm-hmm. Usually he came home from work around 4, and then we had between 4 and 7 with dad while we were little. That didn't happen. Like once I turned 12 and things kind of got weird with Doug being in my life at around 13. Like after that, there wasn't a lot of interaction and a lot of time spent. I don't think. I think it just felt, I don't know, it just changed. It changed the dynamics of our relationship. So, yeah.
What about you, Heather?
Oh boy. I think for me, my grandfather was a minister, so it's sort of in the family.
Family business.
Yes.
It was in ours too. Both sides.
Since I was an infant, I've always been in church. When I was little, my dad, before he was a pastor, he was a youth pastor. So I grew up hanging around the youth group, the youth group kids. So Friday night youth group, I was at the church, hanging out with the bigger kids. Yeah, I would say, I don't know, like, oh my God, I'm trying to think. I don't know. I don't know, like, just like, still, like, even though I may, question things, like, I still do have a deep-seated faith.
Yes.
Even after all that. Yes. And even though there may be frustrating things, like, family is still there, even if they can be frustrating at times. And I'm sure I can be frustrating at times. So
the highlight of being a preacher's kid would have the same as having them there for you?
Yeah, they were there. I think, I don't know if Sarah can relate. I'm sure you can. But, like, I know because we didn't have, like, a church building growing up, having that separation between church and home life gets interlocked because you don't have an office to go. So, yes, the home was always, yes, like you said, where people would come for counseling. And I'm sure you had people over for dinner, like, at least, once or more a week. Yeah. Always entertaining. I don't know if growing up, did your family ever help people, like, where they briefly stayed with you? Like, to help somebody out? Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah. People we didn't know sometimes, right? Like, they just, which was no big deal. I think it was great. It was just the way it was. Yeah.
Exactly.
I know one of the other things that I really appreciated about being a pastor's kid was I actually got to go to, in our circles, I got to go to, like, things like pastors' conferences and stuff. We were welcome. Cool. So we would go to things like, we would get that time away in the hotel and playing in the pool. And so that part of that was really cool. We would go on ministry trips with my parents. I would often sing, and if I sang, my dad would give me part of his honorarium as a thank you. There was, there was lots of little things that were perks about being a pastor's kid. Definitely. Yeah. And you always knew what was going on in the church before anybody else did.
Guilty. Yes. And then
which probably I shouldn't say, but you live in the house, you hear it, right?
Yeah. What about church camp?
You know what? We didn't have to. My mom and dad hate camping, so that wasn't ever anything that came up after I got married. But yeah, we're from England. They don't anything. Well, it's not that they don't have church camps in England, but it's just not like a big thing there the way it is here. No.
Interesting.
Oh my God, the church camps were the highlight of my childhood.
We would go to church camp and stay.
That sounds pathetic, but it's true. I have good memories of going to Santa Cruz every summer for going to the Bethel, Bible camp. And
you went to Bethel Bible camp, like in Redding?
This was in Santa Cruz.
Oh, okay. I was thinking,
So the Bethel that I went to was in San Jose, or still is. It's now this massive church. It was a mega church back then with like 2,500 people, and I think there's probably about 20,000 now. Oh, wow. But they took over the University of Santa Cruz campus, and we went to summer camp there.
Wow.
Total indoctrination, crying, all of my friends are going to hell, all of those types of traumas involved in too. But also some really good times, snipe hunting, all of the fun camp stuff.
Capture the flag at night.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting that you guys bring up people staying with you. And I always, throughout my son's life, had people staying with us. I was always the, come in, I'll save you, I have an extra room until, it was always, here, until he was a teenager. And then I took out the closet in the room and made it so no one could stay, because I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't have people living and coming in through this, But I never chided to the church. And I bet you that's where I got it from.
Yeah, probably. Like, cause yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with helping people in need either. Like there's that, but there's also, my in-laws, ex-in-laws, I guess, they had a guy living with them in Winnipeg, and he got married, and after he got married, he took his wife's heart out with a spoon. He literally killed her and ended up in jail. I'm like, you got to know about the people that you're going to have living with
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. Well, that tops any of my roommate stories. Most definitely.
It's not my story.
Wow. Oh.
Wow.
Wow.
Do we have any questions from the audience for our ladies? By the way, Beth was supposed to be on the show, but there was a medical emergency with her mother. So she might come into the VIP, but that's why she's not here tonight. If anybody noticed, I'm sure, we're missing Beth's presence, but I didn't address that. So that is why she's not on the panel, because she is dealing with her mother who was injured. So, but she might be in the VIP.
Okay.
Any comments or anything from our peanut gallery?
My mom uses that term all the time.
So how many kids are in each of yours families? Was it a big?
3.
There's just 2 of us.
3.
Okay.
Yeah, my mom would share her testimony anyway, but she had 6 miscarriages in between my brother and I.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, she was like, I'm definitely stopping at 2. I've had enough.
Wow, that's tragic.
A lot to go
It was.
through.
Yeah.
And are you close with your? You said that your brother is now the pastor of the church. Are you guys close? And same with you, Heather. Are your siblings close?
I would say I'm closer to my brother than my sister, but things with my sister have improved through the years.
My brother and I are kind of in different spots in our understanding at the moment, and so I know I did some stuff that hurt him quite publicly, and I've apologized for it, but he is involved with Bethel Church in Reading. And my ex-husband and I now went down to Reading when we were pastoring, and neither one of us felt good about it. We just felt just a really big hold inside. And my brother credits Bill Johnson for a lot of where he's found himself. So it's kind of a very difficult thing, because we were leading the church in a very different direction before we stepped down. And so, yeah, we love each other dearly. We just saw each other a little while ago. So we love each other dearly, but there's definitely some differences there that we're going to have to work out over time, I guess. Yeah.
Different paths, it sounds like.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a forever thing. I hope it's not. But I think both of us are open to relationship healing. So that's good. Yeah.
One of the things I love about you, Sarah, is that your humility and your vulnerability and your honesty. And so many people would fail to even recognize their mistakes. And not only do you tell us about those, you teach us on how not to do that. And what you learned from it. I really respect that. I really do. Because I am one that says my pain will never be in vain. I want, to prevent anybody else's or anything like that. And you do the same thing.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important the thing is, any situation where you have hurt, chances are you're not, not part of the problem as well. Do you know what I mean? Even if it's only 10%, you're part, you got to own your bit. When I got divorced, or when I left my husband, my mom said to me, she said, before you end up in a relationship with anybody else, we have to figure out the parts you did wrong So you can fix you. She said, your husband had his own issues. He's got to work out his issues his own way. She said, but I wouldn't be a good mom if I didn't say to you there weren't things that you needed to work out too.
Good for her.
You know?
Good for her. I like that.
I try to do that with my kids as well, right? Like, you can be there, but then there's certain things. It's like, okay, well, if you did these things, those are the things you have to work out. You have to take ownership of your own stuff, right?
So I'm always saying, own it.
Yes.
Everything will be okay if you own it.
Take ownership of your own shit. Yep.
Yep.
Exactly. Oh, I like that. That works for me.
Hello, whoever came in sneaking in a warm hello. And Michelle has a question. The major traditions she grew up in were Catholic and Jewish. The Catholics don't have PKs that they owned up to anyway.
Yes.
So yeah, it is a distinctly Protestant thing, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you wouldn't have the pressure of it because nobody would know that you were the pastor's kid. That's for sure.
That's true. That's true. You can hide it and say, I didn't know Benedict wasn't my dad, you know? Oh, that's
well,
great.
in its own way, maybe, I know that the Catholic Church has done its own stuff to screw up kids and abuse, but I'm thinking like in their own way, maybe they're trying to protect, like marriages that are involved in ministry. There's a lot of weight on the marriage from the pressure of the ministry. And then when you add kids to that, I can see in some respects how they ended up at a place where, maybe it's better off not to be married and have children. I don't know. Kind of
well, the patriarchy and everything said that we're just a pain in the ass anyway, so just don't matter.
Well, maybe if it made us the priests instead, then it would.
There you go. There you go. Fix everything. Exactly. But yeah, the problem with Catholicism is not that they're not married; it's the celibacy issue, and that creates people who, what's the word I'm thinking of? Sorry, pain meds. Sexual deviance.
Yes.
Is what I was looking for. So, when you have that prohibition and all of that, then the problems with the kids come in and stuff like that.
Well, and you end up with sexual deviance going into the ministry because
exactly
it's a safe place to find like to be predatory, right? So.
Wow. And when you tell someone that they can't be human,
yes,
they can't do anything, then that's when everything goes really haywire and trauma starts.
Yeah, I think it's like there's got to be like a happy balance somewhere. Do you know what I mean? Like in the sense of, I think not being married isn't the right thing, but at the same time, I don't think, for me at any rate, I don't think raising children, unless your children have bought in with you, like when we started pastoring, my little girl was 1. So, we couldn't have asked her. But when my brother and my sister-in-law took on the church, they talked to their kids about it. It was like the kids were old enough to understand what mom and dad were going into. And so they kind of bought into the vision as well. Whereas when you're little and you're kind of forced into that, you never really get that choice,
Yeah, the same about politics with politicians and their kids.
Yeah. It's like living in a goldfish bowl.
Yeah.
When I was pastoring, one of the things I did is I had a wee bit of a breakdown, and one of the ladies across the street could see into my home. And so one day she was on the phone with me and she was commenting that I was still in my pajamas and it was afternoon. So I took a pen and I wrote on my window, I don't want to live in a goldfish bowl anymore, and dry erase marker.
I'm so sorry, Sarah. You've got some big assholes around you. For these people that are saying this type of thing, wow.
Wow.
One of the shirts that I'm going to design that is going to go up on the Cafe Press is "I am not your property."
I love that. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah.
And that I thought it, for the legal and stuff like that, but I think every PK needs to have one now. because seriously, it's glad it was just a wee bit. To have that pressure and people say those things to you, the demands is so selfish.
Oh, they
so
are. It's
self-centered.
Oh, okay. Now that we're on them, Sarah can remember. I got a call. Okay, my ex-husband now and I were having a date night. We hadn't had a date night in months, and this couple phoned that had been having trouble with their marriage. And so, we had said to them, if you need help, give us a call. And the wife was adamant that they needed us that night. So we laid everything down. We got together with them, and she said, we need advice on whether we should buy a car or not right now. They'd been looking at cars, and I was thinking, you know what I mean? Like, this is something that could wait. So there is, like, you're on call 24/7 as pastors, right? So that means your children, like, mom and dad could have to be gone at any given time too, right? So it's not. Did you have that, Heather?
I was just gonna say, like, being taught social boundaries.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, did your phone ring all the time during meal times?
Growing up, I don't remember, like, ringing in the middle of the night, but a lot of times, like,
but at meal times,
plans would change.
I'm thinking.
Yeah, plans would change, or, oh, I'm not going to be home till later because this came up or that came up.
Yeah.
But no, having boundaries, like, really having that, okay, I'm home now, like, unless it's an emergency, it's sort of like, okay, like, I need to, like, turn that off, and now I'm home, I need to be home, and not have it bleed into family time so much.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just so disappointed that, I thought not having a church, when I see clergy or something like that, I bash all the wealth and stuff like that, but I see them being at the hospitals in the middle of the night, when people are doing that type of comfort to divorces, children. But it's quite disturbing to me for someone to say, I need guidance on buying a car from my pastor. And especially, when just taking those boundaries and throwing them out the window, like you are to be of service to them. You're to be of service to their souls.
Yes.
Not necessarily their everyday lives. And to think that is, I think, what causes a lot of the trauma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, so you see what you end up with is you end up with traumatized people on both sides of the pulpit, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you end up with this horrible, toxic mess.
Yeah. it's, I always say, well, you're not the sun. The world doesn't revolve around you. But to have that, that pressure and all of those things, it kind of does the self-fulfilling prophecy of, creating these terrible traumatic situations where people are forced to be there and forced to be someone's property. I'm sorry, I never saw that side of pastors or preachers' kids, and that kind of disturbs me. I'm sorry for that. Like I said, I would think that people would call, okay, someone's in the hospital, true needs.
True emergency.
My mom had gotten calls in the early days of our church with people phoning, learning to hear the voice of God, because my parents were very good at trying to help people hear God for themselves, right? And my mom would get phone calls of, I don't know whether I'm supposed to vacuum the house or dust first. And my mom would be like, God doesn't care, sweetie. Honestly, unless he really says to you, dust right now instead of vacuuming, unless he says that to you, it really doesn't matter.
Wow. Oh, boy.
Yeah. So, like, when you think about, like, the types of needy people that are out there, that's how needy they are, right? So.
My mom went on the God diet, where she prayed before she bought groceries, before she ate, before she opened the door. And I thought that was a bit much.
Yeah.
She also prayed that her friends would have cleaner homes and stuff like that. It was
Did you pray for mine?
Yeah. She really, I read her prayer diaries after she died. I talked about this last week, and it was, I want a new VCR JVC model XYZ 3:05. Yeah. And I just left a Bible study. God, I cannot go back to that Bible study if she doesn't clean her kitchen better. Yeah. I mean, it's like, let's focus God on loving each other and teaching these things and leave the clean of the house and all of that, in the private. Let's use God as love to make our lives better and stop being so damn selfish and thinking everybody who works for him is just at everybody's disposal.
I'm just looking at that comment on the bottom. Whoever the Facebook user is that wrote that, I congratulate you. That is very good.
I have a feeling that's Mike Zanker. And then
he
the
and
other
I are
one,
supposed to be having a conversation at some point too.
yeah. And no matter how hard we tried, my kids still had some self-inflicted expectations.
Yeah.
Needy people cannot control your calendar and family time. Yep, it's him.
If they do,
Yep. Amen. Preach, brother,
Yes.
preach.
Yes.
That is true.
You let them. Pastoral ego is a terrible thing. Welcome, Mike. You seriously got to get your StreamYard fixed so I can see your name.
Yes.
And have to guess as opposed to someone's going to go, it's not Mike. 1 week. Well, we are already at the top of the hour. This has been a phenomenal chat, and it went by way too fast.
It was good to
For those of you who can join us in the VIP, I posted the link already there. So hop in and come and chat, and maybe Beth will be in on that one. There is a bit of a delay, by the way, between the comments and us, so those might be coming through just a little bit. Tim says, Tim, I'm glad you're here this week. Many times pastors set themselves up to
I would agree with that too, because you feel like you're the only person that can fix it. I totally agree.
Yeah, I'm a control freak. Yeah.
Savior complex. Mm-hmm.
Totally. Again, that's why I had people live with me.
Yep.
Come in, I'll save you. You're a drug addict. I don't care. I'll get you clean. Yeah.
Sounds like, yeah, we'll talk more on the other side.
Yeah. VIP, here we come.
Okay, so where do we click on this?
I will send you the link as soon as we close this out. So,
okay.
I'll send it to you in Facebook Messenger. So, Heather, final words, and where can everybody find you?
Ew, good question. Oh, golly. Let's see. Which poison do I want to disclose? I guess people can reach out to me on Instagram under Openly Bookish.
Okay. Any final thoughts?
This was fun. Are there any other PQs out there that want to connect, chat, word vomit together? Contact me. we can clean up the word vomit together. But no, this was nice, and it's neat to see the differences and the commonalities that we have, and that we all survived.
We did, yay!
I told you.
That's right.
Sarah, I did a banner for you.
Yeah.
So her Facebook group is Jesus Unchained. What the final words, and where can everybody find you?
So they can find me either at Jesus Unchained, or they can find me at Sarah Butler Laudadio on Facebook. I have a public page, so feel free to have a look at it and then friend me if you would like to. And yeah, I think that's about it. Those two places would be the best. So, and yeah, this was great. I enjoyed this. This was fun.
Thank you, ladies, so much for your vulnerability and your honesty. I'm going to kick you backstage. I will see you in just a minute when I close out the show.
Okay.
Ready.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
What a great show, huh? Hearing all different aspects of people's lives and how they're affected. Again, if you are watching on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe. Next week's show, I'm going to announce tomorrow. And we're headed over to the VIP to continue with this conversation. If you want to jump in and you're not a member, go to sherrypalace.com. And for as little as $3 a month, you can jump in the VIP and get all kinds of other perks. I want to thank you so much for attending and listening and following the show along each week. And please walk in love. Bye.